So for me, coaches become very dogmatic. That's something that, hey, you got to do it this way, you have to do it that way. If that was the case, there would be one person coaching everyone in the world that wins Olympic gold medals. So from every country, there are people competing at a high level. So in my mind, it's not about the methods, but the methods that employ are fundamentally rooted in those concepts. So my opinion on that is there's not one way to do it. So that's what the art of coaching is. The art of coaching is taking these basic concepts, structuring them, organizing it, communicating it, and implementing it.
สำหรับท่านไหนนะครับที่กำลังมองหาอุปกรณ์การฝึกไม่ว่าจะเป็นในบ้านหรือในยิมที่ตอบโจทย์การฝึกอย่างครบครันรวมไปถึงนะครับอุปกรณ์การฝึกระดับโลกและก็ไม่ว่าจะเป็นรองเท้านาฬิกาเสื้อผ้าแกดเจ็ตต่างๆเกี่ยวกับการวิ่งหรือแม้กระทั่งคนที่อยากหาค่าความฟิตต่อตัวเองการเทส VO2max Test พบกันได้ครับที่ M Live Shop Central World หรือช่องทางการติดต่อตามนี้เลยครับ
So you are saying that basically, if I'm doing coaching for elderly lady or elderly man, you know, post rehab and whatnot, I can just work him like an Olympic athlete. I just need to move. I just need to set the movement and reps and loads and optimize that for their body?
Absolutely, because the body systems are no different than an older adult. Their ability to operate at a high level changes. Wow. So actually, if I'm training an older adult, the one thing that I think people miss is they're like, well, they can't train heavy. The research shows that they have a propensity to get very strong later in life. But what the traditional method is they stop there. And I think it needs to be taken a step farther, because if you looked at speed and strength, the first thing a person loses in life is speed. So why do we stop doing speed? I think as long as they're healthy enough not to injure themselves, is that we ought to be jumping. We ought to be lifting heavy weights, and we ought to be lifting moderate and light weights very fast in a safe manner.
Fact check in terms of like coaching, and what is it that you often see in your coaching experience that most coaches makes, and in terms of like some fallacies, because I've worked with a lot of coaches too in my life that seems to, you know, there's an endless debate of how much volume, how much intensity, you know, how many days a person or an athlete has to be in the weight room.
Right. I think that goes back to and I kind of always come back to this, is that concepts are few and methods are many. And I don't really think the method that you take, and I think it's pragmatic experience has shown me that the method is much less important in the way that you implement it versus the basic concept. So how can we solve that problem? Well, we know there's 5 basic things we can train in the weight room. Now, within those 5, there's lots of different other categories, and that's where all these methods come in. So for me, coaches become very dogmatic. That's something that, hey, you got to do it this way, you have to do it that way. If that was the case, there would be one person coaching everyone in the world that wins Olympic gold medals. So from every country, there are people competing at a high level. So in my mind, it's not about the methods, but the methods that employ are fundamentally rooted in those concepts. So my opinion on that is there's not one way to do it. So that's what the art of coaching is. The art of coaching is taking these basic concepts, structuring them, organizing it, communicating it, and implementing it. And something that I use very simple is a method that I test. And that testing, I'm going to evaluate that testing versus what the demands are in your sport. And then I'm going to implement my protocols based on the methods that I have. And we go through a workout. And guess what? We start it all over again. Is my assumption correct? Is the theory that I implemented correct? Well, I'll know when I test again to see if the adaptations that I got from this training program resulted in the way that I thought it would.
So to me, this sounds like a very scientific way of approaching the human body and strength conditioning and helping the human body stay strong. But you're just looking at the evidence and see the data and where it leads.
Absolutely, 100%. And the difference is that I think we in America, and not everyone, but they're like, well, do you have scientific evidence that works? And in my mind, science just tells us why something works. If I waited for scientific evidence on everything, I would be so far behind. Because we have to use our experiences, we have to use our communication with other coaches to see what works for them. I'll leave it to the scientists at the end of the day to tell me why it worked. But my goal again is to get a person living up to their genetic potential.
So it's almost like the saying, like you can't wait for science to tell you how to be healthy. You got to be healthy now.
Absolutely.
Right. So, I mean, there are so many researchers on strength conditioning, on sports supplements, on health science out there.
Yep.
And I don't know. I'm reading a lot, and it seems to be contradicting each other every now and then. How do we know which one we can trust and which one we can't?
Because you're concentrating on the methods. So I break it down very simply. Whatever method you want to implement for nutrition works. We have 3 macronutrients: protein, carbohydrates, and fat. The way that I look at it is my protein is going to be what I need to incite muscle protein synthesis. And that's a threshold. So whether you're a person who wants to be right above the threshold, you get the maximum benefit. Whether you're a person who doubles it, you get the same exact benefit because the facts are, the concept is, once you elicit muscle protein synthesis, you are maximizing muscle gains. Carbohydrates to me is going to be directly related to energy. So if I need energy, I increase my carbohydrate intake. My fats are all based around hormonal and having testosterone maximization. I know that once I drop below 20% fat, my hormones suffer. So whatever you want to implement. Now, if you want to go keto, that's fine. You're going to have some downsides to that. But any of those methods, you can be successful. And that's why it's up to a coach and an athlete or a person, if they don't have anybody to guide them, is to understand the concepts of why we eat those macronutrients, and they can apply them however they want.
I see. So
for me, it's very simple because I base my knowledge and base my methods on the concepts, and I don't really care about the method.
Staying on the topic of nutrition, if you have an athlete that is participating in the same sport,
right?
Okay, let's say a javelin thrower,
right?
Okay, is there a dietary regimen for a javelin thrower?
Nope. I'm gonna maximize muscle protein synthesis to take care of my muscle tissue and to make sure I'm anabolic and don't get in a catabolic state. I'm gonna get enough calories to make sure that I can go through my workouts at a high level, and I'm gonna put my fat to where I can maximize my hormonal response.
Any general guidelines between strength-based athletes and endurance-based athletes?
There's a little bit of research out there, and I am far from a nutritional expert. And what I do is I rely on people who are nutritional experts, but I think some of the peri-nutrition, the nutrition before workouts, and nutrition after workouts, but from a broad perspective, they still need to be muscle protein synthesis. They also need to increase their carbohydrate intake if they are using a balanced micro approach. And then they may sometimes have a little higher fat. But in my perspective, I don't just look at what they need now. I look at what's going to be 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And so many times in sports, you see people who just go caloric. They have super high fat, super high carbs. And then when they leave sport, they have a really hard time managing their weight. So I don't think it's just all about what they need now. I think it's about what they need to create a healthy lifestyle all the way throughout their career.
So you use sports as teaching tools for people to eat and people to take care of their body and just to know. Because for me, what I learned most about sport is what to put in my body and what my body likes and what my body doesn't like. And then now I'm a plant-based athlete. I feel pretty healthy about it. I mean, I won't ask you about plant-based athletes.
No, I don't think that there's anything wrong with it, but you have to be a very disciplined person.
Do you think it's possible to compete at an Olympic level being a plant-based athlete?
Absolutely, 100%. You just have to work harder at it than somebody who doesn't. But whether you're balancing your macros with all of the food groups, or whether you're trying to balance your diet with one less food group, but you can substitute. And people eat fish, some people eat eggs. It's all about protein source and making sure that you're staying in that positive protein. But no, everything, that's the one thing about people think there's these secrets. There's not a nutritional secret either. It's all about look, consistency and compliance are going to be the two variables at the end of the day that are going to be the most important for staying in something for the long term. So if you have the ability to be on a plant-based diet and you're consistent with it and you're compliant with the rules that you need I need enough protein, I need enough calories, and I need enough fat, then everything is possible.
And this rule that you say, it's physiology, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that anybody can debate that. You may read some muscle building articles that say you need 2 times your body weight in protein to build muscle. The science just doesn't support that. Once you reach that threshold of muscle protein synthesis, you've done it. It doesn't take any more. Now, in some cases, when people have to consume so many calories to support the muscle, everything obviously has to go up. You have to eat more fat, you have to eat more carbs, you have to eat more protein, and they're just keeping it balanced. But don't become dogmatic about your approach so much that you can't realize that there's other ways.
So what about supplements?
I'm not a real big supplement person.
Do you allow, when you were coaching, do you allow your Olympians to take some supplements? And if so, like what are they?
Absolutely. Look, there's 2 things that I know from peer-reviewed data work. A lot of athletes, especially males, have a hard time getting enough protein, so I would supplement with whey protein. The second thing is I think it's undeniable that creatine works. Creatine phosphate works. So those 2 things, I would say the vast majority of athletes
BCAAs?
Yeah, I mean, people do. I mean, there's a lot of debate on branched chain amino acids. Look, most people don't get the basics right. My basics when it comes to that are eat and drink. Okay, get your nutrition right first. Like supplements are important, but most people don't get the fundamentals right. Eat and drink. Okay, make sure you're hydrated, not overhydrated. Make sure you're hydrated. Make sure you're getting a good balance of your 3 micronutrients. The second thing is move. Make sure your training's right. And the third thing in that is sleep. No matter what we do in sport, if you're not sleeping right. So I would say 99% of the people are looking for supplements to counteract the eat, move, and sleep aspect of this. And if I was going to take supplements, I think that it's totally fine. In my opinion, I would recommend that athlete talk to somebody who is really an expert in that. But from the most part, I stick to whey protein. I stick to creatine. Yeah, I take a multivitamin because my wife buys them. But my focus as a coach is focus on the 3 big ones.
And also, if your wife buys them, then you really have to take them.
Absolutely.